So in this video, we're gonna solve more complicated quadratic equations. And basically, the method is same, except you need to sort of analyze a bit more. You need to think through the problems a bit more than usual. So basically, it's not gonna be possible to do all the questions. So let me just do some of them. So I'll do A and B because I'm so sorry. I don't know why it's happening. Okay. All right. So I'll do A and B because there is an idea that I would like to give you. All right. And then let's see. I believe C, D, and E can be solved using the same idea, and F. So A and B, sort of the idea carries through. So we'll do, let's say, E and F as well. So let's do 4 examples. I think you can handle C and D as well. G has the same idea. H has the same idea. We'll do I as well. No, I has the same idea actually. So we can do J. I and J also have the same idea. But let's do... I think you can do I and J as well actually. So we'll do K and L. So I'm going to give you an idea. And basically, once you understand that idea, everything else is going to be pretty simple to solve. So let's start with part A, 1A. And the equation is x to the power 4 minus 13x squared plus 36. So now, this is a quartic equation, right? You have a degree 4. So I'm sure you may be wondering, how do I solve this equation? Well, to solve this equation, we're going to translate it into something that we can solve. What do we know how to solve? We know how to solve a quadratic equation. So how do we make this into a quadratic equation? Well, if you think about it, x to the power 4 is just x squared squared, right? Because these two multiply to give me 4. So 13x squared plus 36 is equal to 0. And now, I'm just going to say that x squared is equal to some variable v. So v squared minus 13v plus 36 is equal to 0. Now remember, x squared, right? X squared is always positive. X squared is either 0 or positive. If you look at the graph of x squared, you're always going to get positive values or you're going to get 0. So you have to remember, when you solve for v, your v is going to be positive. So that is something to keep in mind. So now we can just solve this like a regular... this can be solved like a regular quadratic equation. So is this factorizable? Let me think. So 36 is 12, 3. That does not work. 9, 4. Yeah, this is... So you can actually factorize this. And the factors are going to be v minus 9, v minus 4. So if you expand it out, v times v is v squared minus 4v minus 9v minus 13v plus 36 is equal to 0. So if you use the sum and product method, you can get this factorization. But if you're not comfortable with factorizing it like this, then another option that you have is that you can use the quadratic formula. That is also perfectly valid. But factorization gives me this. So I know that v is equal to 9 and v is equal to 4. But remember, we're not solving for v because v is just x squared. And we can take the square root. So normally, negative 3 squared gives me 9, positive 3 squared gives me 9 as well. But remember, x... So is v both greater than 0? Yes. So actually, we can take both values. So plus or minus 3, x is plus or minus 2, right? Negative 2 squared gives me 4, positive 2 squared gives me 4. Negative 3 squared gives me 9, positive 3 squared gives me 9. So I have 4 x values that satisfy this equation. All right. And that is pretty much the solution to A. So you have 4 x values. But in some cases, you want to think of whether your x value is permissible or not. So I think we'll probably end up doing all the questions so that you get a better idea. But basically, v has to be greater than 0 here. That is the condition. And v is 4 and 9, both of which are greater than 0. So b tells me I have x to the power 6 minus 7x cubed minus 8 is equal to 0. How do we solve this? Well, I know that x6 is just x3 squared minus 7x cubed, right? X to the power 3 raised to the power 2 is x to the power 6. So I'm going to say x to the power 3 is equal to v. And there is no restriction. X to the power 3 can be positive or negative, right? It's if you check the curve, it encompasses both positive and negative values. So we don't have to worry about it. So v squared minus v, 7v minus 8 is equal to 0. And we can factorize this as well. So when we factorize this, we get v minus 7... Sorry, we get minus 8 plus 1 is equal to 0. So this is your factorization. So you get v is equal to 8 and v is equal to negative 1. That gives me x cubed is equal to 8, x cubed is equal to negative 1. And if you take the cube root of both sides, you see that x is equal to 2 and x is equal to negative 1. So that is your solution, 2 and negative 1. So you don't have, there is no restriction on this question, but there is a restriction on part A. So your v values have to be bigger than 0, and they are. So that's why you can... But if I had gotten v is equal to negative 3, then I reject this value. That is not possible at all. All right. So I hope you're getting the idea, because we've done so many questions related to factorization and quadratic formula. I'm skipping over some of the steps, but feel free to take your time, do the steps, and get to the solutions. All right. And C and D are very, very similar, right? C and D are very, very similar. So let me do E for you. So E says 3x to the power 4. So I'll leave part C and D for you to try. So I'll do E. So 3x to the power 4 plus x squared minus 4 is equal to 0. And I'll say x squared is equal to v again, right? So when you use the same idea, you get 3v squared plus v minus 4 is equal to 0. But remember, x squared is either 0 or bigger. That is something you have to keep in mind. So v is bigger than or equal to 0. So now, let's think. Let's use the quadratic formula. V is equal to minus b, so minus 1, plus or minus the square root of b squared. 1 squared is 1, minus 4 times a is 3, times c is negative 4, divided by 2 times 3. 2a is 6, right? So minus 1 plus or minus 16 3s 48 plus 1. So you're going to get square root of 49 divided by 6. So minus 1 plus or minus 7 divided by 6. Now v is bigger than 0. So if you solve this, you actually get to negative 8 over 6, or v is equal to 1, right? But you have to reject. V cannot be negative. So v is equal to 1 is the only possible answer. So x squared is equal to 1 and x is equal to plus or minus 1. Because negative 1 squared is 1 and positive 1 squared is also 1. So when you take... So it's not like you're taking the square root. When you do take the square root, you have to take both the positive and negative values. Because when you square them, that squared is x squared, right? Or another way to think of this is just x squared minus 1 squared is equal to 0. So you can factorize this as x plus 1, x minus 1. How? A squared minus b squared is a plus b, a minus b. So this is actually what is happening. And this gives me x is equal to negative 1. This gives me x is equal to positive 1. So x is plus or minus 1. Both are valid answers. So negative 1 squared gives me 1. And positive 1 squared also gives me 1. So this is different from taking the square root. When you take the square root, usually if you're taking the principal square root, you only get a positive output. And this is something we'll also discuss when we're talking about functions and domain and range. But x is plus minus 1. That is the solution to E. All right. So let's do F. And F is also very similar, right? So you have 8x to the power 6 minus 9x cubed plus 1 equals to 0. All right. So let's x cubed is equal to v. X cubed is equal to v. So no restriction. V can be positive or negative. So 8v squared minus 9v plus 1 is equal to 0. And we can use the quadratic formula. So v is going to be minus of minus b, so 9. Right? So minus of minus 9 is plus 9, plus or minus the square root of 81 minus 4 times a is 8 times c is 1 divided by 2 times 8. 9 plus or minus 81 minus 32. I think that is 49 again. So 49. So 7 divided by 8 2 is 16. So that gives me 16 over 16, which is 1, or 2 over 16, which is 1 over 8. So I know x cubed is equal to 1, or x cubed is equal to 1 over 8. So x is equal to 1, or x is equal to 1 over 2. Because 8, remember, is just 2 cubed. And when you take the cube root of both sides, you get these two solutions, 1 or half. So that is going to be the solution to F. So I don't know why my laptop died. Let me reconnect. All right. So for part F, it's 1 over 2 and 1. So we've done it correctly. All right. So moving on. I think almost all the questions here are very, very similar. So you can use the idea of E. So I'd like to try H actually. So H is x squared plus x4 plus 9x squared plus 14. And I'll say x squared is equal to v, and this has to be bigger than or equal to 0. Remember, x squared, even powers of x are 0 or positive. Even powers of x. So 2 is even, 4 is even, 6 is even. So all even powers of x are always going to be bigger than or equal to 0. So x to the power even power is always bigger than or equal to 0. So this is something you might want to remember. So I have v squared plus 9v plus 14. And let's see, can we factorize this? Yes, we can. V plus 7, v plus 2 equals to 0. So basically, you get v is equal to negative 7 and v is equal to negative 2, right? But remember, v has to be positive, bigger than or equal to 0. Both of these are negative. Therefore, both of these values you must reject. And you can conclude that you have no solutions. So for h, you actually have no solutions. And we have discussed the reason why we have no solutions here. So that is why you want to be careful. If it's a negative solution, you reject it immediately, especially if it's when it's an even power of x. All right. So K is essentially the same question, just with a bit of algebra in between. So you have 9 divided by x to the power 4 plus 5 divided by x squared is equal to 4, right? So you want to multiply by the highest power, which is x to the power 4. Why? Because you want to eliminate this, right? So x to the power 4 times x to the power 4, right? On both sides. Whatever you do on the left-hand side, you do it on the right-hand side. So x to the power 4 times, it cancels out with the denominator, so you just get 9. Plus you have x to the power 4 times 5 over x squared. You have 4x to the power 4 on the right-hand side. And remember, x to the power 4 divided by x squared. That is just going to give you x to the power 4 minus 2, which is just x squared. That is using the laws of exponents, right? So you get 5x squared as your solution, and then you send this to the other side. So 4x to the power 4 minus 5x squared minus 9 is equal to 0. So you can solve L using the same idea. It just involves a different power. So you multiply through with x to the power 6. You get something that is similar to all of the questions that we've done before. All right. So you can solve this using the v greater than or equal to 0. V is equal to x squared. All right. So you have 4v squared minus 5v minus 9 is equal to 0. And therefore, v is going to be minus of minus 5. 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 4 times a times c over 2 times 4. So 5 plus or minus. So you can sort of use the quadratic formula. I'm doing things a bit quicker because we've done this so many times. 25 minus 4 times negative 9. That is 169 divided by 8. So we have 5 plus or minus 13 by 8. And this gives me either 18 by 8 or something that is negative, right? 5 minus 13 goes negative. I need to reject my negative solutions because it's bigger than or equal to 0. So whatever my negative value is, I'm going to reject it. So v is, I believe, 9 by 4. X squared is 9 by 4. And if you factorize, so if you say x squared minus 9 by 4, which is just 3 by 4 squared, is equal to 0. And if you factorize this using the a squared minus b squared formula, you get x plus 3 by 4, x minus 3 by 4 equals to 0. So ultimately, you will see that your solutions are plus or minus 3 by 4. Sorry, 3 by 2 squared. Because 2 squared is 4, right? 3 squared is 9. So when you square this, I need to get, so this has to be 2 plus or minus 3 by 2. So that should be your solution to part K. And that is it. So I hope that you're clear with the idea on how to approach these questions. And that is pretty much how you solve the first part with higher powers of x. Now part 2 may look a bit different. It looks like you have lower powers of x, right? So how do you approach 2? Because now you have something involving square root. So we will not do all the questions again. So I'll do F, I think, F, C, and A. And you can try B, D, and E on your own. But A gives me 2x minus 9 square root of x plus 10 equals to 0, right? And basically, if you know x is just square root of x squared, square root of x squared gives me x minus 9 root x plus 10 equals to 0. So square root of x is going to be my variable v. And again, remember, v has to be bigger than or equal to 0 because of how the square root function is defined. So the square function, the square root function, they're both bigger than or equal to 0, right? If you take the square root of any number, you can't get something that is negative. All right. So 2v squared minus 9v plus 10 is equal to 0. And you can solve this using the quadratic formula. So v is going to be 9 plus or minus square root of 81 minus 80 divided by 4. So when you use the quadratic formula, you're going to get this expression. So you have 9 plus or minus 1 by 4. So therefore, v is equal to either 8 by 4, that is 2, or v is equal to 10 by 4. So 10 by 4 is just 5 by 2. So if you simplify, you get these two solutions of v. And basically, remember, v is square root of x. So when you square to get x, you get x is equal to 4. So you square both sides, you get 25 by 4. And you can actually write it as 6 1 over 4. So your solution is 4 and 6 1 over 4. So I know I'm doing things a bit quicker here, but because we've done these type of questions so many times, we've established the idea. The only new idea is when you take the square root of a number, you should get something that is 0 or positive. But that is it. We are covering very, very similar ideas that we've already talked about before. Part C is very similar as well. So I have 6x minus 17 square root of x plus 5 is equal to 0. So square root of x is equal to v. For b, you just want to multiply this inside. Square root of x times square root of x is square root of x squared. That is just x. Right. So square root of x is just going to be v is bigger than or equal to 0. So I have 6v squared, because x is just square root of x squared, minus 17v plus 5 is equal to 0. And you can solve this quadratic equation. V is 17 plus or minus the square root of 17 squared is 289 minus 4 times 6 times 5 minus 120 divided by 12. So 17 plus or minus 289 minus 120, that is 13, 169 again. So you get square root of 13 divided by 12. So v is 30 by 12. Or v is equal to, I believe, 4 by 12? All right. So v is 30 by 12 is 15 by 6. 15 by 6. 15 by 6 is, I believe, 5 by 2. Yeah, 5 by 2. And v is equal to 1 by 3. But remember, v is just square root of x. So when you square, you get 25 by 4. You get 1 over 9. So 1 over 9, 25 by 4 is just 6, 1 over 4. So that is your solution. All right, we're done with part C, and let's just finish off part F. So F gives me 3 square root of x plus 5 over square root of x is equal to 16. And basically we want to multiply. We don't like having things in the denominator. Let's multiply by square root of x. So if I multiply everything with square root of x, so I have 3 root x plus 5 divided by square root of x is equal to 16 times square root of x. I have to do it on both sides. If I multiply these two together, I get 3x. Right, square root of x times square root of x is just x. Plus, if I multiply these two together, the square root of x in the denominator and the numerator cancel out. Is equal to 16 root x. And again, let's say square root of x is equal to v. So I have 3v squared plus 5 is equal to 16v. So 3v squared minus 16v plus 5 is equal to 0. And we can solve this using the quadratic formula. So if you use the formula, you get this expression. And 256 minus 60, 196. So 16 plus or minus 14 divided by 6 is what you will get. So therefore, v is, if you add them together, you get 30 over 6. That is just 5. Or if you subtract them, you get 2 over 6. And 2 over 6, I believe, is 1 over 3. So square root of x is equal to 5, or square root of x is equal to 1 over 3. And x should be 25 if you square both sides. So if you want to cancel out the square root, you have to square both sides, right? So x is 1 over 9. So 25 and 1 over 9. Those are your solutions. Two-part. This is F. Yep. All right. So 25 and 1 over 9. And that is it. Let's look at question 3. So we have a curve. Y is 2 root x, and we have a line. So if you're curious, the curve looks something like this, 2 root x, and we have a straight line with a positive slope. So let's write the straight line something like this. And we have 2 points of intersection, A and B. All right. So write down an equation satisfied by the x-coordinates of A and B. All right, so basically, what that is asking us to do is we can substitute the value of y here. 3 times 2 root x is equal to x plus 8. 6 root x is equal to x plus 8. And basically, this is the equation that they're asking for. So you can take this to the other side and write it as 6. This is equal to 0. So you can write it as this expression, but this is the equation. Basically, the x-coordinates of the point of intersection, right? The point of intersection are A and B. The x-coordinates of A and B, sorry about that, the x-coordinates of A and B are gonna have to satisfy this equation. So that is essentially what they're asking for. And solve your equation. So let's just say, hey, root x is equal to v, right? That's what we've been doing. So v squared minus 6v plus 8 is equal to 0. I believe this can be factorized. So v minus 4, v minus 2 should be the factorization. So v is 4, v is 2. Root x is 4, root x is 2. So therefore, x is 16, x is equal to 4. So those are your 2 coordinates, so x coordinates. So we need to find the y coordinates as well. All right. So y is equal to 2 square root of x. So 2 times, when x is 16, square root of 16. So 2 times 4 is just 8. So you have 16 comma 8. So that's one equation. And then you have y is equal to 2 root x. You substitute x is equal to 4. You get 2 times 2 is equal to 4. So you have 4 comma 4. So you just substitute to get y. So you get these 2 points of intersection. So we'll just call this A, we'll just call this B. And we're done with B. So it just says find the length of AB. So you want this length. How do you find the length? Well, AB squared. So it's basically you're drawing a right angle triangle again. We know B is just 8 comma 16. Sorry, 4 comma 16. 16 comma 8, my bad. It's 16 comma 8 and A is 4 comma 4, right? So we want to draw a right angle triangle like this. And basically, how we're going to solve is we want this length plus this length. This is right angle triangle. So AB whole squared is going to be my base squared, right? So what is my base squared? A squared is going to be the distance between the x coordinates. So 16 minus 4 squared. 16 minus 4 squared. So I come 16 units here, I come 4 units here. So this length is just has to be 16 minus 4 plus 8 minus 4, right? So you just take the difference between the y coordinates. 8 minus 4, 16 minus 4, and then you square it because a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. All right, ab whole squared is 12 squared is 144 plus 16. So ab squared is equal to 160. AB is equal to 4 square root of 10, I believe. Yeah. So how did I get this? Well, square root of 160, square root of 16 times 10, and this gives me 4 square root of 10. So that is your answer to part C, 4 square root of 10. All right. So we have found the length of AB. So we are given a graph, right? The graph of this is given here, all right? For x greater than or equal to 0, that has to be the domain of the square root function because we have a square root function here. The graph crosses the x-axis, so we are given here 1, 0, 49, 4, and meets the y-axis at the point 0, 7. So find the values of a, b, and c. All right. So basically, we just want to substitute these equations here. When x is equal to 1, y is equal to 0. So 0, a times 1 plus b square root of 1 plus c, right? So 0 is equal to a plus b plus c. So that is equation 1. Now let's substitute this here. 0 again. Y is 0 again. This time, x is 49 by 4 plus b times square root of 49 by 4 plus c. So this is simplified. We can simplify this. We have 49a by 4 plus b times, what is square root of 49 by 4? That is 7 by 2 plus c. And we can multiply by 4 because it's harder to work with, fractions. So let's just multiply by 4 everywhere. So we get 49a plus 14b. So because if you multiply by 4, 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. 2 times 7 gives me 14b plus 4c. So this is equation 2. And we know that this is also, so if I substitute x is equal to 0, y is equal to 7. So 7 is equal to, if I substitute 0 here, this collapses to 0, this collapses to 0. So we know that c is just 7. So a plus b plus 7 is equal to 0, which gives me a plus b is negative 7. And we know that 49a plus 14b plus c is 7, right? So 7 times 4 is 28. So that is equal to 0. So 49a plus 14b is negative 28. And we can divide everything by 7. So 7a plus 2b is equal to negative 4. And we have a plus b is equal to negative 7. And this is a simultaneous equation. So let's multiply this equation by 2. We get 7a plus 2b is equal to negative 4. 2a plus 2b, and you can feel free to use substitution, elimination, whichever method you're more comfortable with. This is something that you've done in grade 10, so I'm gonna do it a bit quicker. So when you solve, you get 5a is equal to 10. So a is 2, and then you can solve it in any one of the equations. So you can solve it into this equation. 2 plus b is equal to negative 7, b is equal to negative 9. So your solutions are C is 7, B negative 9, and A is equal to 2. And basically, you just want to substitute things back to get these values. All right. So you just want to use the information given here, substitute it into the given equation, and you can solve for A, B, and C. It's basically asking you to solve a system of linear equations. It's asking you to solve simultaneous equations. All right. And finally, we have question 5. And you might be thinking, we are given this graph, the equation is given, and it's the same thing. We are given 3 points, we need to find A, B, and C. And that is doable. We can substitute point 1. So y is 0, right? So 0 is equal to a 2 to the power 2 times 2, right? X is 2. We have 2 times 2 here, plus b 2 to the power 2, because x is 2, plus c. So 2 to the power 4, that is 16a plus 4b plus c. That is equation 1. Now let's substitute our second point. 0 is equal to a 2 to the power 2 times 4, because x is 4, plus b 2 to the power 4 plus c. And this is simplifiable as well. 2 to the power 8. Well, 2 to the power 8 is 256. So we have 256a plus 2 to the power 4 is 16b plus c. So we have 2 equations here. And that is about it, right? Now we can use this value. So if I substitute x is 0, y is 90, is equal to a 2 to the power 0, 2 times 0 is 0, plus b 2 to the power 0, plus c. So 90 is equal to 2 to the power 0 is 1. A plus b plus c is 90. All right. So you may be thinking, this looks a bit different. But actually, from this expression, you know that 90 minus a minus b is equal to c. So we can substitute this value of c here and here. So 0 is equal to 16a plus 4b plus c is just 90 minus a minus b. And when you simplify this, you get 16a minus a, that is 15a, 4b minus b, that is 3b, plus 90. And you can divide by 3. Everything here is divisible by 3. So you get 5a plus b plus 30. So 5a plus b is negative 30. So that is equation 1. And I have to substitute it here as well. So 0 is 256a plus 16b plus a plus b. Sorry, 90 minus a minus b. All right, so 0 is 255a plus 15b plus 90. And everything here, I believe, is divisible by 15. So if I divide by 15, I get 17a plus b plus 90 by 15 is 6. So 17a plus b is equal to negative 6, right? So if I take 6 here, and then I know 5a plus b is equal to negative 30. And I can subtract these two equations. Now you are capable of solving these simultaneous equations. 12a must be equal to 24. So a should be equal to 2. And I can substitute this value back here. 5 times 2 plus b is equal to negative 30. 10 plus b is equal to negative 30. So b is equal to negative 40. And we can substitute these two values to get c. And this is our equation of c. c is equal to 90 minus a is 2 minus b is minus 40. So that gives me 88 plus 40, that is 128. And you're done. And that is the end of this topic.